What is up, you guys? Today's video is my complete guide on seed starting indoors. This is going to be a super simple, don't overcomplicate it method about seed starting indoors. I'm going to share all my seed starting tips with you guys today and how I go about starting my seeds. Guys, again, this is my YouTube channel, The Bravo 6 Gardener. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys end up liking this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Also, if you guys want to see more gardening how-tos, tips, and tutorials, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Also, make sure you guys stay tuned till the end of this video. I'm going to share with you guys the 3 biggest seed starting mistakes I see beginning gardeners make when starting their seeds indoors. So the tips I'm going to share with you guys are not the end-all be-all way of seed starting. This is not the only way you have to do it. This is what has worked best for me in the past. There are totally other ways to start your seeds indoors. The first thing we're going to talk about when seed starting is when to plant. Now, this is going to depend primarily on what zone you're gardening in. What I recommend doing is going to almanac.com. This website is going to give you your average last frost date. Your average last frost date is the average day for your specific location that you will experience your last frost date. And we typically want to begin our starts 4 to 6 weeks before our average last frost date. If you have a greenhouse, you can start a little bit earlier. You can start usually 6 to 8 weeks out, maybe even push it a little bit further, but to stay on the safe side, usually say 6 to 8 weeks out if you have a greenhouse. Next thing we're going to talk about is our seed starting mix. So we're going to have a couple different options when it comes to this. We can go to the store and purchase a seed starting mix, or we can make our own. The ones you find at the store are going to work totally fine. I did a review on 2 seed starting mixes that you find at the big box stores. Both of them are growing these starts that I have in front of us here. Totally work just fine. We can also make our own mix. I prefer to make my own mix, but again, you can do it either way. The mix that I make myself is made of coconut coir and perlite. Next thing I'm going to talk to you guys about is our seed starting tray that we want to select. Now, when we're starting seeds, we're going to start them out typically in some form of tray or cups. I prefer the seed starting trays here. They're the most efficient, economic way to go about starting seeds. Generally, in the stores, you're going to see these 72 cell trays. They're usually going to be anywhere $4, $5, $6, $7, somewhere in that range. Some of them will come with a humidity dome here. I recommend not using this humidity dome that this comes with. This dome is a plastic cover that you can put over top of this. I don't ever use it. I typically find that increases your chances of transplant shock a little bit more when you're putting them in that high humidity environment. Now, when you guys are putting soil in these starts, before you do that, very important, we want to pre-moisten our mix before you actually put it into these cells. The mix that you purchase from the store is going to be dry in the bag. You will have to pre-moisten this. The way that I like to do this, 5-gallon bucket, take the mix, put it in there, and then just run this under the sink. If you water the mix in the cell, your soil level is going to get 1 to 2 inches below, and we don't want that. And it's going to give you air pockets. You don't want to compact your soil super tightly, but you do want to give your soil a decent pat down when you're putting it in your cells. Not really compacted down, but just a light pat to make sure there are no air pockets. And guys, I'm actually going to plant a seed tray out. I've got some tomatoes that we'll plant here with you guys, so we'll go ahead and plant out a cell here. Now, when we're doing this, you want to do it over top, just to make sure that you're not making a mess. This mix that I have, I've already went ahead and pre-moistened this, so it is already good to go. Go ahead and fill these pretty well to the top. Even when you pre-moisten this, your soil level will reduce probably like a half an inch or so when you water your seeds in. So you do want to make sure that you fill them pretty well to the top. And again, we want to pat them down a little bit, not super tightly down or anything, but just a good pat to make sure there's no air pockets in here. So there, just so you guys can see, we've got a 6-cell tray. We've got the mix in there. Again, I've got it slightly patted down so that there's no air pockets in there, and it's pre-moistened so that when we go to water this, we're not going to lose our soil depth. We're going to be planting a tomato in this cell. We're going to plant all 6. We're going to be doing the triple L crop tomato. This seed is from MI Gardener. And before we do that, actually, when we're planting our seeds, I like to use a pen or you can use a pencil. Actually, I prefer to use a pencil. We'll take the eraser end and we'll just burrow out a little hole in each spot. When we're planting these out, I like to do 2 to 3 seeds per cell, just to ensure that we have 100% germination for each tray. And then we're just gonna go ahead and plant these out. I just pinch them in my finger, drop 2 to 3 per cell. Simple, nothing crazy. Now, how far down you want to plant them is going to depend on what we're growing. Obviously, with tomatoes, they will germinate just fine anywhere between 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 an inch. We're just basically going to take the soil that we created that barrier with, and we're going to cover the seeds up. And we're going to give them a good little pat down. Again, we want to make sure that there are no air pockets at all when we're growing these seeds. Now that we've got them planted, we're gonna go ahead and water them in. When we're watering them in the first time, I do like to go ahead and water them over top. We're gonna talk a little bit more about how I water these later on. When I have my seed starts going, I actually water them differently. But when we're just starting these out, we are gonna go ahead and water them over the top. Now that we've got them watered in, I'm going to show you guys how I actually water them once I have the seed starts growing. Again, when we're planting them, I like to water them over the top just to make sure that we've got really good seed to water contact. But once I actually have them growing, I think it's best to water down in the tray. When you water over top, it's going to create more mold on the soil. Also, when you water over top, you increase the chance for disease. Watering from the bottom takes way less time as opposed to going over each individual plant. You literally just take a bottle of water, you're gonna pour some in, and it's basically gonna water the whole tray. Now this will take a little bit of practice at first. When you're watering from the bottom, it usually takes about 10 to 15 minutes for the soil to absorb that water. If you have any water left, you can just dump the excess water out. This will take a little bit of practice. You'll usually be able to get down how much water you need. This ends up saving a lot of time, and again, it prevents mold on your soil, and it also prevents potential diseases, fungus, mold, all that nasty stuff on the top of the soil. And it's just easier. Again, as opposed to having to go to each individual plant, you're just pouring down into the bottom of the seed tray. Now, as far as watering frequency, we really want to pay attention to our seed starting mix. Basically just want to stick our finger down in there if we can a little bit. Typically, I find myself watering anywhere from 2 to 3 times a week. It will depend on the moisture retentiveness of your mix that you have. Coconut coir holds its moisture really well. I usually can get away with doing 2 to 3 times a week, sometimes 3 to 4, but if you've got a really good water holding mix, you can definitely do 2 to 3 times a week. But basically just take a look at your soil. If you see that the top starts to get dry, that's when you want to water it. Don't overwater your plants. This is one of the most difficult things to do as beginning gardeners, and as for any gardeners really, we love to make sure that our plants are getting plenty of water, healthy and taken care of. Overwatering will do more harm than good. It can cause root rot. It can be just as bad for your plants as not having enough water. So don't water them every day. I promise you they don't need to be watered every day. Water them usually 2 to 3 times a week. Just look at the soil. If it starts getting dry, just give them a drink. And with watering, if you have a really good, well-draining mix, it's actually going to make it difficult to overwater. Again, coconut coir holds moisture really well, but at the same time, it doesn't hold too much moisture. Does a really good job of draining. Again, any seed starting mix that you get from the store will usually do a really good job of providing proper drainage, which is good because it makes it difficult to overwater. Guys, next thing we're going to talk about is lighting. Lighting is super, super important. The amount of light that your seeds are going to require is going to be dependent on what we're growing, obviously. For the most part, tomatoes and peppers are going to need at least 10 hours of light per day, sometimes more than that. And the type of lighting that we use is super, super important. Sneak peek here into one of the biggest mistakes I see beginning gardeners make, using the windowsill for your lighting. Guys, I can't stress enough, using your windowsill for your lighting for your tomatoes and pepper starts is not going to cut it. We need a light to grow these seedlings when we're growing them indoors. There's all different kinds of lighting you can use when starting your seeds. Again, I like to keep it really simple, inexpensive. The light that I use for my seed starts is this guy right here. So this is basically a shop light. You guys have probably seen something like this before. Basically just takes two fluorescent T8 bulbs. This setup cost me like, I think $27, $28 from Lowe's. Sometimes you can find the setup even cheaper. I've seen them almost as low as like $20. Definitely need to invest in this. I know it sucks, $20, $30, but this is something that you need to get. Not this one exactly, but we do need to get some kind of lighting. And actually I made a whole video about my lighting setup for my seed starts, but I'll briefly go over the requirements for the lighting real quick. There's all different kinds of lighting. You can use fluorescent or LEDs, but there are two specs that we want to pay attention to with our lighting when we're shopping for them. We want to make sure that we have at least 2,000 lumens. You can have more, you can have up to 5,000, 6,000 lumens, but you want to make sure you have at least 2,000, and you want to make sure to have at least 5,000 Kelvin. So those are the two big ratings that we want to pay attention to. Lumens and Kelvins. Don't worry about your wattage, anything else. For seed starting indoors, those are the two that we want to focus on for these. You're going to see some lights with like the red and blue tint. That's for actually growing vegetables indoors to full maturity. When we're just starting seeds indoors, we just want to focus on the lumens and the Kelvins. That's it. Now, when you're using your lighting for your seed starts, just to give you guys an idea of how close, we want to keep these at least 3 inches or closer to the foliage of our starts. So if you're just starting out, you're going to have it way, way lower. Once you get to this stage and you have foliage up 2 or 3 inches, you're just going to keep your light at least 3 inches, preferably closer, usually about 1 to 3 inches to your foliage. Also, bonus tip for you guys. When we're starting our seeds indoors, I highly recommend you guys use a fan of some kind. A fan is basically just going to help acclimate these guys to wind. That's really all that's doing. It's going to strengthen the base of our plants, basically just help with the acclimation process. I highly recommend using a fan. You don't have to. You can use any kind of fan. A small little desk fan like this is going to work just fine. But again, highly recommend using a fan. Next thing we're going to talk about is hardening off. So hardening off is basically the process of acclimating your plants from your indoor environment to the outdoor environment. Generally, we want to start the hardening off process 1 week prior to when you plan on these seed starts going into the ground. And again, with the hardening off process, I like to keep it really simple. I harden off over a period of 7 days. So day 1, 1 to 2 hours, day 2, 2 to 3 hours, day 3, 3 to 4 hours, day 4, 4 to 5 hours, day 5, 5 to 6 hours, day 6, 6 to 7 hours, and then day 7, 7 to 8. Day 7, you can increase it even more. By then, the starts will be really well acclimated. You'll basically be able to keep them in full sun all day. The important thing here, when you're just starting them out, try not to put them the first day in direct sun. Maybe find a spot with partial shade. Again, don't overcomplicate seed starting. I can't stress it enough. I see so many gardeners getting so flustered, so frustrated with seed starting. Put a good draining, good moisture retentive mix in here. Plant your seeds, water them 2 to 3 times a week. Put good lights over them. And before I forget, we're going to go over again the 3 biggest mistakes I see gardeners make when seed starting indoors. The first and most important mistake we're going to go over that I see most people making is do not, under any circumstance, use soil from outdoors to start your seeds. If you bring in soil from outdoors, that soil has all sorts of pests, eggs, fungus that is just waiting to hatch when you bring it indoors. If you bring in outdoor soil into this nice 70-degree weather, that has insect eggs that are laying dormant just waiting to hatch. That will run rampant on your seed starts. Do not, under any circumstance, use that soil. I'm telling you guys from experience, when I was a beginning gardener, I even tried that out before, not knowing. You will literally see pests eating away at your plants. Do not do it under any circumstance. Go buy a mix or make your own. Next mistake I see a lot of beginning gardeners make, which we talked about a little bit earlier before, is using a windowsill for your seed starts. Guys, the light that your starts would receive from a windowsill is just not enough. We need direct, bright overhead lighting for these starts. Again, the seedlings are going to get tall and leggy. They will not start off well. Me personally, I've never been able to start a seed start from the windowsill. Buy the lighting, suck it up, $20, $30, pay for the light. Don't do it in the windowsill. There's other things maybe that you can grow other than tomatoes and peppers that don't take as much light, but you do absolutely need them for your seed starts. And then the final mistake that I see a lot of beginning gardeners make when starting seeds is fertilizing or over fertilizing. Now, when you're starting seeds indoors, you actually don't really need to fertilize at all at first. I really don't like to start fertilizing until we see our first true set of leaves. So like on tomatoes, this is your beginning leaves, and then this second set that we see starting to form here, those are your true leaves. That's when I start fertilizing, and even then it's just a really, really tiny amount. You don't want to over fertilize. You can stress your plants out. And again, when you're just planting them, you really don't need to fertilize at all. Just do very, very small amounts. Your plants will tell you when they need fertilizer. If your leaves start to yellow, that's usually a nitrogen deficiency or too much. Seed starting should be simple. Get a mix, plant your seeds, water them in, put a light over top of them, give them 4 to 6 weeks, transplant them out to the ground. Don't stress, don't overcomplicate it. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Again, this is my YouTube channel, The Bravo 6 Gardener. If you guys ended up liking this video, I would so appreciate a thumbs up. Also, if you guys want to see more how-tos, tips, and tutorials from my channel, don't forget to hit the subscribe button below, and don't forget to hit the bell notification. That way you guys get notified anytime I post a video. Thank you guys so much again for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys learned something. Again, this is not the end-all be-all to seed starting guide. This is just my simple way to get you guys off seed starting. Thank you guys again. Bye.